Imagine lining up for battle at 300 kilometers per hour, knowing that the man beside you will not blink, will not hesitate, and will absolutely not give you space unless the laws of physics force him to. That man is Max Verstappen, and today we're breaking down the most misunderstood, most feared, and most decisive weapon in modern Formula One. Verstappen's aggression, not reckless aggression, not emotional aggression, but calculated, surgical, unavoidable aggression that makes rivals lift before they even realise they're scared. Because here's the truth nobody likes to admit. Most drivers don't lose to Max Verstappen on lap time. They lose in their heads, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why passing Max Verstappen feels impossible, even when you're fast enough. Max's aggression didn't appear overnight, it was forged early, brutally early. Raised in an environment where racing mistakes weren't lessons but failures, Verstappen learned something most drivers never fully embrace. Hesitation is slower than error. From karting to Formula 3 to Formula 1, Max built a reputation as the driver who would always take the corner, even if it looked insane. And that reputation followed him into F1 like a shadow. Early in his career, critics called him reckless. Rivals accused him of being dangerous. Stewards watched him closely. But something fascinating happened over time. Instead of dialing it back, Max refined it. He learned exactly where the limit was and then parked his car right on top of it. Aggression in Formula One isn't about crashing into rivals. It's about positioning. It's about commitment. It's about forcing the other driver to make the decision first. And Verstappen has mastered this art better than anyone on the grid. Here's the psychological trick. When two drivers approach a corner side by side, only one thing truly matters: who commits first. Max commits earlier, harder, and more decisively than anyone else. His rivals know this, and that knowledge is what makes them back out. Think about it. Every driver has an internal risk calculation running in their mind. If I go for this move, will he yield? Against most drivers, the answer is maybe. Against Max Verstappen, the answer is almost always no. And when the answer is no, the rational choice becomes survival, not heroics. This is where fear quietly enters the cockpit. Now let's reset your attention for a second. Quick question, if you knew the driver next to you would never back out, would you? Exactly. That hesitation is where Verstappen wins. Max's aggression is terrifying because it's clean. He rarely locks up. He rarely overcommits past the apex. He positions his car exactly where it needs to be to make the move legal, but uncomfortable. He leaves rivals just enough space to avoid a penalty, and just little enough space to make the corner impossible at full speed. And this isn't accidental. Verstappen understands FIA racing guidelines better than most fans, and honestly, better than some drivers. He knows exactly how much room he must leave, exactly how late he can brake, exactly how far he can push someone wide without crossing the line. That knowledge turns aggression into a weapon instead of a liability. Wheel to wheel against Max isn't a fight, it's a negotiation. And Max never negotiates. Now let's talk about why this aggression is so effective in modern Formula One. The cars are heavier, the braking zones are longer, dirty air makes following harder. Every failed overtake attempt destroys tyre life and race strategy. So when Max defends aggressively, he's not just blocking a position, he's draining your entire race. Drivers know that even if they attempt the move and survive, they'll overheat tyres, lose momentum, and expose themselves to cars behind. So what do? They wait. And waiting against Verstappen is fatal. Here's where it gets even more brutal. Max Verstappen doesn't just defend aggressively, he does it early. He doesn't wait until the braking zone to shut the door. He positions his car several corners in advance. He forces rivals onto compromised lines before the overtake even begins. By the time they reach the braking point, the move is already dead. That's not aggression. That's domination through anticipation. And this is where the myth breaks apart. Verstappen doesn't rely on reaction time. He relies on prediction. He reads body language through steering inputs. He watches car placement. He knows when a driver is thinking about a move before they commit. And when he senses that intent, the door closes. Hard. Now, quick pit wall interruption. If you're still watching this breakdown, congratulations, you're officially deeper into F1 psychology than half the paddock. Hit subscribe before Max defends that button too, and drop a like. It helps the algorithm more than DRS helps a midfield car on a straight. Back to the carnage. One of the reasons rivals struggle so badly against Verstappen is that his aggression doesn't come with emotional spikes. He doesn't panic. He doesn't overreact. He doesn't get baited into mistakes. Even under massive pressure, his inputs remain precise. That calm aggression is far scarier than rage because it's predictable only in outcome, not in method. Ask yourself this: how do you pass someone who never makes a mistake, never leaves a gap, and never doubts their positioning? You don't. You wait for strategy, or weather, or luck. And that's exactly what Verstappen forces you to do. This pressure compounds over laps. Rivals start overthinking. They hesitate in braking zones. They choose safer lines. And suddenly the gap grows. Not because Max pulled away on pace, but because he broke their rhythm. And here's the cliffhanger moment most fans miss. The more aggressive Max is early in a duel, the less aggressive he needs to be later. Once a driver backs out once, they're mentally compromised. They've accepted the hierarchy, and Max knows it. That's why repeat battles against Verstappen almost always end the same way. Now let's flip the perspective. Why doesn't this aggression backfire? Why doesn't Max crash more often? Why doesn't he collect penalties every weekend? Because aggression without control is chaos. Aggression with control is dominance. Max's car control allows him to place the car millimeters from the limit while maintaining stability. His braking technique lets him slow the car without locking up. His throttle modulation keeps traction even when positioning forces awkward exits. That technical mastery is what allows his aggression to exist without collapse. In other words, other drivers can't copy this style because they don't have the control to survive it. This is why teammates struggle. This is why rivals complain. This is why fans argue endlessly about him online. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to answer in the comments. Is Verstappen aggressive? Or is Formula One simply not comfortable with a driver who refuses to yield? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Many of the greatest drivers in history, Senna, Schumacher, Alonso, were labelled aggressive until the grid adapted. Verstappen is simply the modern version of that phenomenon, operating in a sport that markets itself as clean, but thrives on conflict. And Verstappen understands that conflict is leverage. As regulations tighten and margins shrink, aggression becomes more valuable, not less. Passing is harder, opportunities are rarer, and Max Verstappen thrives in scarcity. He doesn't need many chances, he needs one. Which brings us to the final realization. Passing Max Verstappen isn't impossible because of speed. It's impossible because by the time you consider the move, he's already decided the outcome. He controls space, he controls risk, he controls psychology, and once he's in your mirrors or worse, not alongside you, the race is no longer on your terms. So the next time you see a rival back out of a fight with Max, don't call it weakness, call it survival instinct. And now here's your final cliffhanger. If this is how Verstappen defends, what happens when someone finally refuses to back out? That answer is coming in my next video, where we break down the most intense psychological rivalries in modern Formula One history and what really happens when two unstoppable forces collide. So click the next video on your screen, subscribe if you haven't already, drop your thoughts in the comments, smash the like button like Max smashes apexes, and I'll see you in the next one, where F1 stops being sport and becomes warfare.